Clay, the CRM data enrichment company, just released new pricing. And as with all AI pricing, it is complicated, so complicated. So they did nail a few things. So I'm going to go over what they nailed, what's hard about it, and actually walk through the onboarding so you can see how it shows up. So the first thing is the party line is things got cheaper. AI got cheaper, data got cheaper. They're actually losing money with this pricing change. And it's very clear from how they presented this that they're terrified that they're going to get, murdered in the press for this pricing change. But this is a masterclass in communication. I would seriously consider watching their announcement video to really walk through how pricing changes should be done. Highly transparent, who it affects, why it affects, just really nailed it. And it's still complicated. So the things to note are, one, the first tier went up by $30, so people will be paying them more. And they introduced kind of different variable payment models. Now, I'll remind you that generally AI pricing is tough, right? You have to figure out which model you're using. So many times you're paying for a newer model. And then there's this new thing where you're paying for the complexity of the task. And then they introduced actions and data. So just so many variables that an end user has to track in order to know how much they will pay you at the end of the month. Kyle from Growth Unhinged had a nice analogy here that this is actually, or model, where this is you're paying for the platform and you're paying for data. And that's, I think, how they want you to think about this. You're paying for Clay, and then you have to buy enriched data. So you have to buy the phone numbers and you're paying for that. I like that. I think that's very nice. The analogy is like Snowflake or Shopify. Basically, Shopify, you pay and then you add a transaction cost off every swipe, or Snowflake, you're paying for data storage. And so that model actually could be a very nice mental model for consumers to think about, paying some flat fee that has high certainty and then some variable costs. But then they added something called actions, which I'm like, what the hell are actions? I've stared at this and tried to figure it out. And to be fair, I'm not a Clay user, so this may be so intuitive to Clay users. And pricing is more for new users versus existing users, and so this should be somewhat done in plain language. But actions in general is now this variable thing that's built into the platform that in theory no one will hit the limit for, but is still the top of their pricing page. And I think that's the first lesson here is you want pricing to be simple such that you're not actually thinking about it when you're using it. The analogy behavioral scientists give is if you're eating a slice of pizza and you're paid for every bite, you're not going to eat a lot of pizza. If you're paying per slice, you'll eat the slice. That means that if I'm going to have to think about how many times I'm doing an action in the product and I'm being charged for that, I'll probably do less actions, which is just not good for Clay in general. My hypothesis is they're solving for a small group of users that do a lot of actions and they have to somehow charge for that. But the question here is more on pricing presentation, which is instead of putting it the first thing you see, which is starts at 15,000 actions, that means that I'm going to go look up what actions are. I'm going to try to figure out if it's right for me, move it down, make it more invisible. If people actually aren't going to hit the limit, then that's not the first thing they should be evaluating when they're looking at their product. They should be thinking about how much benefit this is going to give to their lives, right? I would say in general, yes, AI pricing right now is really, really tough. So you have, as a user, you have to figure out what model you're going to use. This could be a, older model or a newer model, so that's a variable. And then Replit just really nicely kind of articulated the recent problem, which is there's simple tasks and there's complex tasks. So even if you're using an expensive model, you could be asking something very simple or complex, and you shouldn't be charged the same for these. Just like a junior and a senior person, you should be actually paying for that. Well, that means you're paying for different models and you're paying for different effort, and then oh wow, you have actions and data. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. So, and it looks crazy. So this is Figma's pricing, and it's this is a lot to hold in your head to understand, and people shouldn't be holding this in their head. I don't think Figma is promoting this, but wow, this is a new world we're living in where every single thing you do in the product is charged. So I'm hoping that this will go away. Kind of the analogy is AOL at some point, was charging for dial-up, and they would charge you for the minutes you used, and then they moved to a flat fee of $20, and it literally broke AOL. it slowed the system down the first week they launched it too. And so people just really liked it, right? It slowed it down because everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so at some point, likely in a few years, we will have moved away from a pain of paying model where you're paying per bite of pizza or paying per, use of background image, and moving to a world where you have it all in one. We're just not there because these things cost money. You could imagine, though, making people more comfortable with this and saying, like, look, this is what this means. Like, imagine having 50 prototypes you could do. Like, that's a lot of prototypes. So giving people the sense of abundance when they're working in your product versus scarcity will likely also increase usage. So we'll start with going through the workflow or going through Clay. Enter my name. What team are you on? What CRM do you use? By the way, it's so funny that they only have these. Like, there are tons more CRMs out there. How would you like to get started? Very nice question. I do find, like, a lot of the language in these apps are just too advanced. So, like, they do something cool. They can find emails. They can find phone numbers. That is insane. Why are we calling it enrich? Like, that's not as cool as find email addresses. Okay, so now I'm in the product and I'm here, and I'm going to type leaders in tech. They kind of land you on this thing, and that's the only thing you can kind of really do. And so I type leaders in tech, and I get a bunch of people. How cool. This is amazing. Wow. Again, kind of a nice onboarding trick is, like, the only thing I can do is now click continue. I click continue, and it gives me basically the option to enrich people. Again, very nice. It's like pre-selected. And I'm like, okay, I'll run 10 rows. That sounds really legit. I don't know what enrich people means right now, but, like, how cool. I find these people. I'm like, okay, what happened? What did the enrich do? And this is kind of where, we want to get to the aha. We want to get to, like, wow, this is cool. And we got to one aha, which is, like, they got me a bunch of names. Like, how cool is that? And I'm saying enrich 10 people, which in theory is what I'm paying for in the product, but the enrich didn't do much. It was the same data that it had already given me. I find no differences here. Maybe it added a title. I don't know. It added nothing. So I was disappointed, right? Because if we're going to have a pay, like, everything you do is something you have to pay for, now I'm looking for value like that. So it is transactional. So the analogy in kind of a spousal relationship is like, if I counted every time that my husband Phil took out the garbage, and I had that in my head, I'd be like, well, you didn't take out the garbage today. I'm annoyed. I'm upset, right? Like, what are you doing to me? And then I think about all the things he hasn't done for me. Like, so having a transactional relationship means that you can't actually, in the future, make it up by doing something. You're looking at every single thing and say, are you providing value to me today? And so when we charging people in this pain of paying usage way, that is what a consumer is going to do. They're going to yell at you more, which is what we've seen in the market, is people just yell at companies more because they're getting charged for each thing they're doing, and if they don't like it, it's not going to go well. So then I'm like, what do I do? And again, the only button I could click is tools. It took me a long time, by the way, to find tools, which is in the upper right. Open it up, and awesome. This is so cool. I can find someone's email. I can find someone's company domain. Amazing. So I get started with that. And, I'm like, okay, great. I'll find emails. And then this is, again, where the pain of paying comes in, where, like, I'm being asked to think about tokens at the point of value, which is like, say, do 10 or 999. And I was like, do I have 1,000 tokens to do this? Like, I'm only on the free trial. I don't even know. And so I did. I had 1,000, but I was like, well, I'm not going to use all my tokens. So now we've in scarcity mindset because I'm focused on the token. So I don't actually want to use the product because my headset is like, how much am I using? So I'm like, okay, I'll do 10 rows, which, again, like, it's actually not this. I would actually rather them just say, do 10 to see. Like, you're obviously checking out the product, just do 10. Don't even talk about the tokens. There's so few. Move that out of the way and just help me have a magical experience so that I want to do 1,000 later, right? Okay, now I get to see all these emails. And again, they're focused on kind of this, like, really accounting thing, which I don't even, as soon as they say like 220, I'm like, I didn't do 220, I did 10. And maybe I did 220 because of all the rows and stuff they had to look at. But, like, again, when people are measuring you like this, you get to this sense of, is this fair? Am I being charged right? Do I get the value out of it that I want? But the reality is, for those emails, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So they kind of should take the W here. It's like, wow, you got me emails. Oh my gosh, right? And take the W and now ask me for more because they've clearly figured out something here. And like my first moment here, instead of asking me in the beginning, it's like, get me going, set me up and say like, you probably want to do 1,000 more because you've seen that it actually works. Okay, this is the homepage. This is my one pet peeve that is just a small pet peeve, but doesn't this look like I've used 2,000 credits versus having 2,000 available? I feel like this is AI design where I'm like, a human would look at this and be like, no, that the progress bar has to be empty, not filled in for people to think that they don't want to use it or want to use more of it. Okay, and then if you want to say upgrade in the product, this is what you get to, which is kind of the Kyle Growth Unhinged theory, which is if you go to the plan cost summary at the bottom here, it's like the growth plan is 200, the data credits are 200. So you're really having a platform model and a data model, still very complex. You know, you can kind of get sticker shock here, but at some level, this is aligned with revenue. It's not a cost savings product. And so people can have a lot more rationalization on paying Clay because it's really aligned with like upside of their business. Will they pay Clay for months and months on end? Unclear, but like, you know, having kind of this one-time pull of emails, I'm assuming is valuable enough for folks. By the way, my dream experiment would be doing a 3-month subscription. So saying, look, I don't want to sign up to you for a year, but like 3 months I could do, and really getting people to think ahead and say, I'm going to, for the next 3 months, for this quarter, my goal is to do some sales efforts. Let's go. Okay, here we go. And with that, I would say if you do have any pricing questions or want to debrief your pricing page, let me know. I'm here. AI pricing will hopefully get easier, but not until it gets harder.